objects, oddly enough, can store information about their owners. And especially this information is strong when the object was or became at some time an artifact that people, collectors, found. There are many real cases when the owners of these found things can manifest themselves, or the energy from the object will begin to affect the new owner. There is a category of people who are passionate about archaeology. Well, if for scientific purposes, but there are black diggers who dig in order to find treasure, gold, valuables, or objects that have a sufficient price in a certain market, even sometimes up to several million conventional monetary units. The decorations were, and still are, the most iconic and mystical in this series. A ring, bracelet, tiara, earrings, chain can forever change the life of a new owner if this person starts wearing it and considers it already his own, especially if this jewelry was associated with a deceased person. At the time of death, this object was on this person and still has some kind of energy that a person does not even know about. He guesses. There is a procedure for cleansing found objects, but it is not always effective since prayer, ablution in holy water, acids, and other media will not harm information that has a completely different physical level. They say that objects have a memory. This is the real truth. Once I had an unpleasant episode in my life, after which I stopped doing something. 1998. Winter. The guys in the yard are kicking some kind of piece of iron, playing war. At that time, I was returning from the store with groceries or from work, home. I don't remember exactly. They had already all run home. As it was getting dark, I looked at what they were kicking. It turned out to be a broken, with a crack, German helmet, field, winter, quite massive, painted with light paint. These can be seen in the Chronicle of the War, when German soldiers are shown in winter when they masked their helmets by painting them white. There were no internal straps, balaclava, just a metal helmet. I decided to take it, put it in the basement, storeroom. In order to study, maybe I could find the year of manufacture. At that time, I already had several items in the storeroom. An iron cross from 1939, which was found while digging a trench, a metal buckle of the Wehrmacht, and a corrugated pencil case from a 1944 gas mask, which was in perfect condition. It took some time. 2 years, probably. These items were in the pantry. One day, my friends at school talked about such things. I told my friends that I had. They asked me to bring them to the next session. They were interested. And anyway, as it turned out, it's all sold to collectors on the hump. I decided that I would bring it. When it came time to get ready for the next study session, I decided to renovate a little, to touch up this helmet, since there was green paint. That's where the joke started. In the evening, when I went down to the basement, opened my pantry. There was a light, a table, paint. Began to sandpaper my helmet, removing the old paint. Suddenly, I see that a man's eyes looking at me through a crack between the walls of the pantry, and the face was even visible, sunken, high cheekbones, gray, earth, colored skin, light brown hair, slightly reddish, dark eyebrows. The gap was wide enough. 5-6 centimeters. Probably. I was petrified by what I saw and decided to put the helmet on the table. Carefully left the pantry and decided to look at this man. Who could it be? After all, there could be no one else in the basement but me. I was there alone. 100. As the padlock is hinged, I opened it myself. I tiptoe out of my closet and carefully, leaning my hand on the wooden walls of the neighbors' storerooms, I look into the corridor between the sections of the storerooms, where this gap between the boards was. There stands and looks at me. A tall, thin man in some kind of cape canvas. Like a tent cloak, he has already turned completely to me. His face is kind of strange. The eye sockets are dark. I can hardly see the eyes. The light was dim enough. This hallway was illuminated by a basement window, which was dirty. There was no light bulb in this hallway, or it burned down a long time ago. Then this object turned its back on me and floated away into the darkness of the corridor. Went almost into darkness, as if it had dissolved into it. That's when I got really scared. I ran out without even closing the basement. Only after a while, I went in there with a powerful flashlight, studied everything. There was no one. He locked the doors, took out all the artifacts from the storeroom, and put them in a bag to take them to Moscow. At the Gorbanov DC market, they just almost grabbed it with their hands. Then, when I sold it, I realized that I could sell everything several times more expensive. I bought something home for my little daughter and my wife, and I still have some money left. After that, the desire to collect such things disappeared. The sun was slowly sinking lower. Its rays illuminated only the slopes of the hills, forming bizarre bright spots on them. Taiga was preparing for the nightlife. The daytime sounds gradually subsided. Animals and birds, leading an active life during the day, were preparing for rest. The night inhabitants, on the contrary, woke up and asked the daytime ones what interesting things had happened that day. Me and a worker, a former hunter with my dog, having completed the route, headed to the camp. The night was rapidly coming into its own. The last rays of the sun had already disappeared, and the twilight was confidently enveloping in a velvet blanket of darkness. The moon rose in the sky, and the stars poured out in a scattering. She illuminated everything with her mysterious light, bringing magic and changing the surrounding nature. On a night like this, it feels like you've fallen into a fairy tale. The worker walked in front, and I followed him. After walking about 500 meters, it seemed to my peripheral vision that someone was walking parallel. A meter away from us, now showing up, then hiding behind bushes and trees. Without stopping, she turned her head in that direction to make sure, and immediately tripped and fell. The hunter stopped and turned around. When I tried to get up, I felt pain in my leg. Groaning involuntarily, she took off her backpack and the device and began to feel the sore spot. I calmed down that there was no open fracture. The worker came up to me. When I found out that there was something wrong with my leg, I found a suitable stick so that I could lean on it when walking. Taking my backpack and device from me, despite my objections, he helped me get up, and we continued on our way. He was walking, loaded, 2 backpacks, a device, a rifle and an axe. I was hobbling light from behind, leaning on an improvised crutch. The dog ran ahead of us, occasionally running up to us. The pain increased with each step. After walking about 300 meters, she stopped and sat down on the ground. Pulling up her pant leg, she asked me to shine a light on her leg. She was already noticeably swollen, in the place where there was severe pain. The hunter took iodine and a bandage from his backpack. After applying the mesh, she bandaged it. "Can you walk?" "What is it?" he asked. "And where am I gonna go?" "You're as loaded as a donkey. Just let's move, even slower," I replied. With great difficulty, clenching my teeth so as not to moan, with his help and leaning on a stick, I got up and we walked. He was in front, looking back at me every now and then. At first, it was tolerable. But the longer they walked, the pain became unbearable with each step. I walked with my teeth clenched. It was obvious from the pain. His forehead was covered with perspiration. I just wanted to say that a short rest was necessary when I felt as if someone was supporting me, slightly lifting me off the ground so that I did not step with all my weight on my sore leg. It's a strange feeling. I didn't feel like I was being supported by a human being. Looking to the left, she was walking with her head down, looking only at her feet. She saw someone next to her. Surprisingly, our dog reacted calmly to him. At that time, we just came out into an open area illuminated by moonlight. It was a translucent entity, similar in outline to a human, taller than me by about a head or a little more. He had an almost overgrown, either wool or hair, face with a beard and bushy eyebrows. His eyes shone a greenish-blue color from under them. He is dressed in loose trousers, like trousers, and either a kaftan or a loose-fitting, long-sleeved robe. He held me by the waist with both hands, but I didn't feel his touch, as if from human hands. It just made it easier for me to walk. It didn't hurt so much. There was no aggression or malice coming from him. When I looked up at his face, he smiled and nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. At this time, the hunter stopped and turned around to make sure once again that I was following him. Literally for a split second, his eyes widened, but immediately returned to normal and, turning away, continued walking. Finally, we approached the camp, where a bonfire was burning and around which our people, who had also returned from the roots, were sitting. Before reaching a little, I felt that I was being gently released. That is, I firmly put my feet on the ground. The pain in my leg increased dramatically. Turning my head, I saw that this creature was a meter away from me. "Thank you very much," I said, opening my teeth with difficulty. The hunter stopped and turned to us, bowing low to him, said, "Thank you, Master of the Taiga, for your help." The entity smiled at us, retreated behind the trees, and seemed to disappear, as if it had never existed. Approaching the campfire, they joined those sitting. After dinner, over a cup of tea, they told about what had happened, about unexpected help. If hadn't been for the owner of the taiga, who helped me walk, I don't know why. Maybe he just regretted it. Most likely, the hunter would have had to leave me alone and go for help.